Welcome back to Never Enough Novels for another casual reading update. I have a few different books to share with you today, including a book that I just finished that was an unexpected hit, one that I decided to DNF, which is a surprise from this romance author, a few books that I'm currently reading, and what's up next on my TBR. I'm going to put the link to all of these books down below, so if you see any that catch your eye, you can buy them from Amazon or Target and help support this channel along the way. Before we dive into the books, I just have to share this really adorable bookish puzzle that I'm working on right now. It features a bunch of different literary destinations and iconic places from different classic books. I'm about like halfway through the puzzle, so this is just the cover as you can see. But I absolutely love it. It's from a shop called Pippi Post, which is one of my all-time favorite like bookish small businesses. They have such a wide variety of really cute bookish goods like puzzles, tea towels, journals, and notebooks, plus a bunch of different apparel. So I highly recommend checking them out if you like bookish accessories and things for your house. I'm going to put the link to their shop down below as well to make that easy for you guys to look at. But I know they have a whole collection of these different literary puzzles, so if that's something you're into, you're definitely going to want to look at their options. So the first book that I'm sharing is one that I read on my Kindle, and it was called A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by Jay Penner. This was a book that was actually released in 2023, and I guess now they're re-releasing it as a deluxe edition. So it was picked up by Poison Pen Press, and it actually just came out on April 15th, so it's brand new. And the deluxe edition has these really gorgeous sprayed edges and a beautiful cover. And this is a cozy fantasy. I started to get into this genre when I read The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I think it was last year, and I just absolutely adore these cozy little romances and kind of women's fiction almost, but they're set in fantasy worlds with all the different fantasy characters that we love. A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic is about a young human woman named Arletta who is an orphan, and she's just been supporting herself lately by trying to sell as many baked goods as she can and kind of kept herself small within this little world that she's created for herself. But her neighbors enter her into a baking competition that is very similar to the Great British Bake Off. So if you're a fan of that show, you are absolutely going to want to check out this novel. So Arletta's world is completely opened up. Normally humans do not get selected to be part of this competition. It's meant for elves and dwarves and other species. So she is extremely nervous that she was selected because she has no magic to basically help her. But along the way, she meets a really handsome elf who has come to collect her and basically take her to the competition. And she meets a few friends throughout the competition as well. So it's a classic cozy fantasy with just really heartwarming, joyful vibes and lots of found family and a little bit of romance as well. One that I just adored from start to finish. I think I read it in less than 3 days because I was just so hooked on the story. And it's the first book in a series, so I think they're going to be re-releasing all of the books in the series with these new brand new covers and new editions. So if you like this first book, then it looks like there's going to be more books set within this world as well. The other book that I recently finished is called Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. If you want to check out my full review, I just posted that video on my channel, but quick update. Of course, this is a book that I absolutely loved because Abby Jimenez can basically do no wrong in my eyes. The interesting thing is, though, this got very mixed reviews from what I've seen kind of in the bookish world. Some people loved it as much as I did, and some thought it was a little too heavy for her normal romance books and just didn't connect with the characters. So this features Samantha and Xavier, and these two meet in Minnesota. And Xavier is a veterinarian, and Samantha brings in this cat who seemingly has no hope of living. And their first meeting gets off to a terrible start. Xavier is really rude and abrasive. Samantha is sarcastic and stubborn, and they just do not hit it off at first. But a few months later, Samantha brings the cat back. The cat's very healthy now. And Xavier basically asks for a do-over. So they go out on this first date, and it's just amazing. Absolutely, the best first date. It's extremely long. They get to meet Xavier's friends at one point and end up in this ridiculous escape room situation. But they both know that this is something special. Except Samantha is leaving the next day, and she is moving out of the state for good because her mother has dementia. So she's moving to California to basically be with the rest of her family and help take care of her mother. But Xavier is stuck in Minnesota because of his vet clinic, which he just opened up a few years ago, and he's still paying off the debt on that. So despite the fact that these two had this incredible connection and they both know this is something real between them, they are literally living 2,000 miles apart now. So initially Samantha is just completely forget this ever happened. It's not going to work between us. But Xavier just can't get her out of his head. And eventually he convinces her to do like a long distance relationship. But they both know that it could be like years and years before they're ever actually able to be together. So the reason that a lot of people I think didn't like this story is because it felt like they were just thrown obstacle after obstacle in the course of this love story. And I mean, they do not get to see each other very often. Both of them have jobs that require a ton of time commitment and don't make a ton of money. So it's not like they can fly back and forth easily. And just like disaster after disaster hit. And I think it was tough to read at times, but it also is just a very realistic look at the power of love. And when you find something that is true and meaningful, you will do whatever it takes to be with that person, even if it's not exactly like a pitch perfect scenario. So I love this, and I love Abby because she doesn't shy away from difficult topics and situations like this. I feel like she does a great job of showing how hopeful and like romantic things can be, even in the face of really tough like real life circumstances. So to me, if anything, her books are more realistic than some other romance novels that I've read because they are facing sometimes terrible situations that feel impossible. But yet these couples work through it together and can overcome incredible difficulties because of the love that they have for each other. This probably isn't your normal like summer beach read because it's not full of lighthearted, fluffy rom-com scenarios, but it was a really well-written romance that showcases how love can prevail despite certain circumstances. I also really liked how Abby focused a lot on like Samantha's relationship with her siblings and her dad as they were caretakers for her mother. And Xavier has his own issues with his parents that are still affecting his life. So she makes these characters really well-rounded. And I think for that reason, you get even more into their relationship and are rooting for them to succeed. Then to get into a few books that I'm currently reading, the first one is The Last Flight by Julie Clark. I was just kind of browsing the library the other day I wanted like a heart-racing thriller that would just keep me turning pages super fast. And I read the description of this one and it sounded pretty interesting. I've never read this author before, but I think I read like 50 pages last night and I'm hooked so far. It basically is about two women who I think switch identities. So we kind of get to know the first woman really well in the first couple chapters of the book. And she's in an abusive relationship and is desperate to get out. So she has set up this entire plan to basically disappear off the face of the earth, create a new identity so she can get away from this man and his extremely powerful family. So when she meets this other woman, they like switch identities and there's a plane crash at some point. So I don't know if one of them like doesn't survive and the other one is kind of dealing with the repercussions of the situation, or if both somehow survive, but they're like off the grid now because of decisions that they made in the past. So I'm really curious to see how this story develops. It sounds like the other woman that we don't know a lot about yet. Like we get allusions to her backstory that there's some shady stuff going on that either she's running from or trying to accomplish as well. So I am very excited to see what happens with these two women and how this story plays out. It's excellent so far. And the other book I have going on right now is called Broken Country by Clara Leslie Hall. And this was just recently a celebrity book club pick. I think it was Reese's book club. So it's more of like a literary fiction, general fiction type book, which I don't normally delve too much into that type of genre. But I had heard a lot of good things and that it was very readable and, pretty fast paced compared to some other just like general fiction books that I've heard of. So I decided to give it a try because it popped up on Libby. So I'm listening to the audiobook now, and the audiobook was only like 9 hours, so I know it wasn't going to be a huge time commitment. But the story is kind of historical fiction. It takes place in like two different time periods. One is like the mid 1950s and then the late 1960s. And we go back and forth between these two time periods. And our main characters are Beth and Frank, who in the late 1960s are married, and a person from their past basically comes back into their lives. So their neighbor is now Gabriel, who was a part of the small town like over a decade ago, because Gabriel and Beth had like a summer fling all those years ago when they were younger. And Gabriel is now like a famous author, and he has brought his son back to the small town where he grew up. Now, Beth and Frank lost their son some years ago. So they are dealing with this like incredible tragedy still. And Beth kind of sees an opportunity to help Gabriel's son because the mother isn't there, or else she might have left them at some point. So it's just Gabriel and his son. So Beth like sees this little boy that needs a mother, and she starts to take him in under her wing, but also that means like getting back into Gabriel's orbit as well. So Frank is like very uncomfortable with this whole situation, and it kind of brings up all of these feelings and passions from over a decade ago. And this is a very like small town situation where everyone knows each other and is all in each other's business. And I think there's some sort of murder or something that happens because there also are scenes where one of the characters is on trial as well. So there's definite like deadly consequences to this situation that is developing. So far, I really like the back and forth jumps in time because it keeps the story moving really quickly. And I'm obviously like, excited to see what happens in present day now that like Beth is kind of torn between these two men once again. I'm about 25% of the way through so far, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I can see why people recommended this and why it was selected for that book club. So I will keep you updated as I go, but it's kind of nice to try something in a genre that's a little bit different from me and find that it's actually pretty interesting. And then just to give a quick glance at what's up next on my TBR, this is another book that I'm going to have on my Kindle. So a huge thanks to the publisher for sending this one my way. It is The Love Haters by Catherine Center. So Catherine Center is one of my all-time favorite like rom-com authors. She's also on my list of clean romance authors. So if you're looking for books with no spice in them, I definitely recommend her. They are always like charming and full of romance, but they don't get into any spicy scenes. So she is an all-around incredible author. Her books are often a mix of romance and maybe like women's fiction because in addition to focusing on the romance aspect, there's also a lot of discussion with the main character and her own growth or relationships with other people in her life. So I really like how she kind of blends those genres together. But her newest book is called The Love Haters, and this is about Katie Vaughn, who has been burned by love in the past and now might be lighting her own career on fire. So she thinks she might be getting laid off from her job as a video producer soon. So she kind of takes a desperate risk to try and keep her job. At the suggestion of her coworker Cole, she decides to do a profile on this Tom Hutchison, who is a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in Key West. However, Katie doesn't know how to swim, so she makes up this lie that she does know how to swim in order to get closer to Hutch. Now, Cole, her coworker, and Hutch are brothers, and they do not necessarily get along, so Katie is kind of dealing with both of them as she does this profile on Hutch. So she heads down to Key West to start profiling Hutch, and she just gets trapped in more than one lie while she's down there. And a bunch of different shenanigans ensue, like helicopter flights, conga lines, drinking contests, hurricanes. So she has the chance to tell the truth or face old fears and be truly brave at last. This sounds like it will be so much fun for summer with the Key West destination and lots of like beachy summer activities that are going on throughout the book. And like I said, I have not yet read a Catherine Center that I did not enjoy. So I think this will be another hit from her based on all of her success in the past. And it's another one that I'm excited to get into. Last but not least, I want to just mention the book that I decided to DNF. So I had mentioned this book earlier in my last book haul video, and that's Fall into Temptation by Lucy Score. It was one of the books that I picked up from the library, and I think I had said I was about 50 pages into it, and honestly, I just never picked it up again. So there wasn't anything terribly wrong with the book. It's not one that I have like distinct reasons why I didn't enjoy it. I just ended up choosing other books instead of it over and over again. So to me, that's a sign that the story is just not hooking me enough to keep going. So I decided not to finish that one and just send it back to the library unread. I feel like at least half of the books that I get from the library, I end up sending back unread. I am such a mood reader that I'll pick something up thinking I'm going to start it right away. And then if it sits for a day or two, I get distracted by something else. And then it goes back to the library without me reading it. Hopefully I am not the only one who does that. So let me know in the comments if you've ever returned a book unread to the library as well. But that wraps up my quick little reading update for this week. So let me know in the comments what you're currently reading or what your most recent favorite read was. I always love to hear what you guys are getting into as well. And make sure you hit like on this video and subscribe to see even more book recommendations in the future.